Hey everybody, how's it going? And you have reached Native Opinion. We are an Indigenous information and education radio show and podcast and video. And every week we talk about current affairs related to and from our own Native American perspectives. My name is Michael Kicking Bear, and the guy on the other end of this thing, of course, he is.
David Grayow. This is the last episode of this show from sunny Southwest Florida. I am relocating to sunny Northwest Florida. Well, North Central.
It is. It's like the end of an era. it's like no. I mean seriously. We've done the show for 6 years, and I would say a good 5 years of that, you've done it from that location, the house you built with your own hands. It's
Yep.
like the Gray Owl Cottage, and, and now it's going away, man. I don't know how to feel about that. I don't know.
Well, another one,
Maybe,
another one shall follow. It'll be almost identical to this one.
yeah. I was gonna say we should maybe take up a donation plate to get you to stay. No, stay there. Okay. So yeah, well, yeah, it's kind of sad, but I get it. But so you about packed up and ready to do that thing, or
Oh yeah, I'll be rolling out of here one way or the other tomorrow.
oh, that's right. Yeah, tomorrow's like
Yeah.
D-Day. Like all of a sudden, new people. You're like, can I help you? Oh wait, no, you own the house. Okay, You know? Sorry, and bye bye.
Bye bye.
So yeah,
It's
no,
been
I get that.
fun.
Yep, it's been fun. Been fun. All right, you guys. So, as always, how you can reach us here on this show is you can email us, host with an S, host at nativeopinion.com. That's one way you can reach us. You can also visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/Native Opinion Podcast. And you can also visit our website at nativeopinion.com. You can email us through there as well. We're also available out at Twitter. It's at Native Opinion over there. We have resurrected our YouTube channel, and I believe, fingers crossed, I think our first video episode was posted there. We did get an email from somebody asking, how they can get the video show, and I've been editing, as time permits. So that's the excuse I'm going to give you guys. That's really honest though. But we decided that was the plan, to start with episode 400 for the video version. So we sort of took a page out of George Lucas's book, who likes to start movies in the middle of series, I guess. With Star Wars 4. But anyway, yeah. So it's episode 400 that's up on our YouTube channel. You should also be able to see that through our website, if you look under resources. But we will be moving that to the main homepage shortly. So you can get it those two locations: our website and or the YouTube channel. Just search for Native Opinion over there. We're also a podcast, which means you can go to any of the major podcast directories and search for Native Opinion there, and just subscribe, which is free. And you can get the audio version of this show as a podcast auto magically by just subscribing, and it'll be downloaded every single week. Last
And
but
for
not,
900,
oh, go ahead.
no, I'm
No, go ahead.
sorry. I was going to say, and for $999, you'll get your own special decoder ring on how you get.
That's right. It looks just like this. Okay. If you believe that, you'll
I'm
buy
sorry,
this
brother.
one.
I had to slip that quip in there.
We watched way too much Ronco television when we were kids, right? Now
I
I have an
apologize.
iron for your hair. Yeah, stuff like that. You cannot do this show without this portable mixer, and it doubles as a coffee mug. All right, I don't know what I'm
Bronco
doing.
TV.
I'm trying to be funny, and I'm not. So I get it. Last but not least, you can also leave us a voicemail and or text message at 860-800-5595. It's 860-800-5595. That's that number right over there. You can use that. So cool beans. Cool, cool, cool.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, right off the bat, I want to thank our newest patron, Eric. Welcome back.
Hey, Eric. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And if you would like to become a patron like Eric and all of our other wonderful patrons, you can find out how to do that. And you don't have to purchase a decoder ring. You can just
But
you
I
can just
want one.
you're right. You can just log on to our website at nativeopinion.com/support. And on our Facebook page, just click on the Learn More button. And you can also tell your friends, family, and colleagues about the show. And give us a
Indeed.
5-star review on iTunes.
Pretty
And you know
please.
what, guys? We think you're the greatest listening audience in the world. And we thank you for sticking with us these 6, almost 7 years coming up and being a part of the Native Opinion family and
Thank
growing
you.
with us. It's much
Absolutely.
appreciated. Thank you.
It is very much. Also, want to very quickly mention the business that my wife and I own and operate called Mohegan Trading Post. We sell authentic handmade Native American crafts, beaded jewelry, clothing such as t-shirts, hats, and other things, especially now during the summertime months. We also sell natural food products such as wild rice, flour, batter mixes, natural jams and jellies. We're now selling traditional made maple syrup and other maple products from my tribe, from the Mashantucket Pequot tribal nation, or as we say on our language, Mashantunkwa. That is the traditional name of our location. We have a whole new website that is going through a redesign right now, which I think I've mentioned over the last few weeks. But the old site is still up, and many of the projects are still there, and we'll try to add some more even to the old site until the new one is ready to be revealed. So please check out our stuff over at MoheganTradingPost.com. Thanks, guys, very much. We do appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, this is episode 404.
Yes, indeed.
A lot of wonky stuff has been happening this week. And all
Yeah.
all I've come up with is they'll try to get rid of us any way they can. Truly. And in today's show, we're going to talk about Indigenous women who are disproportionately represented in Canada's criminal justice system.
Yep.
And I want this to never happen to another Native student. They ruined something she has worked her whole life to achieve. Washington is raising our alarms about consolidated infant formula industry, but the government has helped keep it that way. And we would also like to have an open discussion about the recent shootings in Buffalo
Yep.
and quite literally 10 days later, Uvalde, Texas. While the motivations of each shooters was different, the response to gun violence in the US remains the same, unfortunately.
Mhm.
Can't we do better than sending thoughts and prayers to the victims and their families of whomever it may be?
Mhm.
And here's where you'll fill in the blank.
Yep.
How have thoughts and prayers helped?
That's the central question, and I didn't want to be remiss also, and overlook the Asian church in California that also had deaths
Mhm.
within the same time frame. So that's three events involving gun death in the United States. Tired of thoughts and prayers. It's time for action. But all right, let's move on.
Well, here's something that struck me as not odd but profound, brother. When I was doing research for the show, and I didn't realize this fact, and it explains a lot. Indigenous women make up nearly half of Canada's incarcerated population. Nearly half. Indigenous women.
The numbers are staggering. Indigenous women are on track to make up 50% of Canada's female prison population. This is 10 times greater than their representation of the general population. The data is included in a new statement by correctional investigator Ivan Zinger. Ontario Senator Kim Pate says something has to change.
It's beyond a crisis. I don't know what's worse than a crisis, a catastrophe, a disaster. Certainly, it underscores the travesties that give rise to Indigenous women in particular being the fastest growing prison population, but also still more likely to go missing, be murdered, disappeared, end up on the streets than they are to get a high school, let alone a post-secondary education. That should not be true in this country.
In past reports, the correctional investigator has made recommendations to reduce the number of Indigenous people incarcerated. Suggestions such as appointing a deputy commissioner for Indigenous corrections have been ignored so far. Kim Bodé of the Congress of Aboriginal Peoples says part of the problem is the correction system itself has no incentive to change.
You know, when you got Correction Services Canada with their massive budget at $3.1 billion, you've got policing, for example, at $20 billion per year. This is per year. And then you've got other growths in terms of other areas. I mean, if you were an investor, this was a private company and you're investing into Correction Services Canada, you'd be getting a phenomenal return on the backs of Indigenous people.
Pate says reform needs to be based more on the causes of why so many Indigenous people are ending up in prison.
We need to look at who we're criminalizing and incarcerating, particularly for Indigenous women. We have to look at how many, 91% of them have histories of violence. Most of them, when they are convicted of a so-called violent offense, an assault or even murder, often are reacting to violence first done to them. And so when we know that context, it really behooves us to make major change to address this.
Pate and other senators also say judges need to take into account the structural racism Indigenous people face during sentencing hearings. Fraser Needham, AP10 National News, Ottawa.
Now, their new legislation seeks to change that. And this comes to us by way of Native News Online by Jenna Coons. Now, who would have thought? Who would have thought that half of a country's prison population would have been Native women? That's a lot of Native women.
It is, but welcome to North American history.
Oh yeah,
quite frankly.
And you know what else came to mind? How many of those are missing Native women? Mm-hmm. How many? They disappear in the prison system, and for some reason, they're not able to get word to their families.
Exactly.
Yep. That's a question to be answered. How many of those have families thought had become missing and murdered when they could be part of Canada's penal system?
It's probably quite high, and I mean, is a component of that communication.
I would submit yes. Now, according to the Canadian government, they've proposed a new legislation that, if passed, would work towards dismantling systemic racism in Canada's criminal justice system. And that was a quote. Okay, so work towards dismantling. That's too ambiguous to me. It's quite ambiguous. They're going to work toward dismantling systemic racism. Why not just, cut right to the chase and dismantle it?
Well, again, it's wordplay, right? So,
absolutely.
When you see things like working towards, that means, that's political speak for saying, we're not really going to do much.
Not really going to do much.
Until it gets closer to election time, and then we want to act like, we care about a particular country's Indigenous people. Especially if an election is going to be close and they want to gather up as many votes as possible. Look what we did for Indigenous communities, and
right.
It's a sham.
Speaking of, before I forget, Massachusetts, was it Massachusetts? Yes, I think it was Massachusetts. Some towns in Massachusetts are offering free beach access to Native Americans. I read that and it was like a great big WTF.
Yeah. Also in Rhode Island.
Rhode Island, yep, as well. Yep.
Yeah, we had and where the way our communities have communicated this to the general public, and obviously, within our own communities, is these are rights that we've always had, and that
Absolutely.
we need to remind these states of that fact. But instead, they're trying to position it as they're doing us a favor. No, you are trampling on our rights, and we are re-engaging, reasserting rights that we've had from the womb.
Right.
So, yeah, that lovely, again, piece of wordplay, which is like we're doing us a favor, not buying the BS, if you will. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what better way of getting rid of native populations than reducing the ability to continue people, to continue offspring? What better way? You take the life givers out of the equation, guess what? Populations almost stop. They almost dwindle because in a lot of native cultures, it's the women who are the decision makers in some tribes and nations. So you take them out of the picture and you've just done a whole lot of damage to a given nation or a given tribe or a given band.
absolutely.
And they know this. Canada knows this. But here's the BS about their work towards claim. The bill was introduced in December 2021 and was given urgency after an annual report to the Office of Correctional Investigation. And the investigator, Ian Zinger, found that Indigenous women made up nearly half of the population in federal custody. Federal custody, despite accounting for just 5% of the adult population in the country. Think about that for a minute.
It's ridiculous.
Think about how many Native women that is. Now, Justin Trudeau is appalled and that the government's
Oh,
bill
please.
should help the problem. Yeah, that's what I said. You know
Yeah,
what?
forgive my skepticism, but
You know, mandatory minimums. Okay, so what does that mean? What does that mean? Mandatory minimums. That means that somebody's going to be sentenced to X number of years, no matter what. That's the minimum. The minimum could be 5 years, it could be 10 years, it could be 20 years. That could be a minimum. They don't tell you this.
but also, what comes to mind when I read that too is, so for populations that are non-indigenous,
Hmm.
oftentimes, I think like first offender laws, right? And whether or not those, if they exist in Canada, it varies here in the United States, but some states do have first offender laws, which means the violator has the option of going into some reform program, right? But they're in Canada, and based on those statistics, were they even offered that? I gotta say no,
Right.
based on who they are, and based on how high that percentage of incarceration is, right?
Correct.
If they're never offered that as a potential opportunity, to that, and that also assumes if they were even guilty to begin with.
There you go. There's the
See,
rub.
see what I don't even see in the article is, and this isn't an attack against the author, but is what kind of offenses are they? Because we see this here in the United States, minor possession charges, and they're in jail for like 10 years.
Hi, I'm Paul Ketchum, Assistant Professor, University of Oklahoma, Criminal Justice. Hi, I'm Mitchell Peck, Associate Professor in the Department of Sociology at the University of Oklahoma.
And we're here to talk about our new book through Bristol University Press. The book is entitled Disproportionate Minority Contact and Racism in the U.S., How We Failed Children of Color. Our book is about disproportionate minority contact, which is the overrepresentation of minority youth throughout each decision point in the juvenile justice system. Typically, we shorten this to DMC. And DMC can be caused by one of two things. It can be caused by either differential involvement, and that would be minority youth committing crimes at a higher rate than white youth. The other possibility would be differential treatment, and that would be police, courts, any agency interacting with youth, treating minority youth more harshly, more severely than they do white youth. It's easiest to think of these two things as a continuum with one on each end of it. We originally hypothesized that about 70% of DMC would be due to differential treatment, and 30% due to differential involvement. Our data shows conclusively that 100% of DMC is caused by differential treatment. We can find absolutely no difference in the rate or type or frequency of criminal activity between white and non-white youth. There just simply isn't a difference. And this becomes important because for almost 50 years, we, as researchers, have been arguing about the cause of DMC, and so much of our policing and courts are tied in with trying to minimize, reduce, eliminate DMC, and not knowing the cause of it makes it really hard to treat. So with that being said, Mitch is going to give us a little more information about our data.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, I'm going to talk about the empirical analyses. And we used a triangulation of data, lots of data, from three primary sources. What I'm going to refer to as official data. These are from police reports and court records. We also have self-reports from juveniles of their deviant and criminal behavior. And finally, we have in-depth interviews of juvenile justice professionals, police, attorneys, judges, probation officers, and the like. What's unique about our data is this. These data all come from the same location, and that location is Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and they come from the same time period. And in fact, that time period is an 8-year period between 2006 and 2014. Now, these official police and court data represent multiple decision points in the justice system. Right? Juveniles come in contact with the police, and we have 43,000 police records involving juveniles. We have over 6,000 cases of intake decisions of juveniles in the justice system. And then we have over 3,700 court cases where we look at outcomes from cases that are adjudicated. All of these data, these official data, reveal a very consistent pattern. Non-white minority juveniles receive harsher treatment at each point in the justice system. Right? At the point of contact with police, for example, non-white minority juveniles have a 14% higher probability of arrest versus a citation than white juveniles do for the exact same offense. In fact, we control for other variables as well, age and gender, for example. At the point of intake into the system, once a youth has been arrested, non-white youth, again, are treated more harshly. They're less likely compared to white youth to receive an informal probation of their case or to have their case diverted outside of the juvenile justice system. But non-white minority youth are more likely to have charges filed in their case. Again, all of these findings are for white and non-white minority juveniles who have committed the same offense.
All right. Well, take a look at this article, folks. It's really worth sinking your teeth into. There's a lot of research material here for those who like to do research. And Canada, in my opinion, you're not going to do anything to help those incarcerated women. I don't think you are.
I would love it for them to prove us wrong. Honestly, I've been waiting for that on
Yeah.
so many different things. We'll probably get into more of that a little bit later on a different subject, but yeah, you know what I mean. You would think some of these legislators, be it in Canada or be it here in the United States, you know what I mean, because they pretty much share the same bad brain, right? So it's like maybe they would get tired of hearing people nitpicking about everything that they're doing, but justified nitpicking, okay? And just say, screw it, we're just going to do the right thing for a change. But no, no, not at all. But and I wish I had another article to to be more positive about. But unfortunately, our next story isn't, and
Nope.
and it's a rinse and repeat type of article. So this is an Associated Press piece published through Indian Country Today of a story out of Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. You guys know Oklahoma, right? Surprise, surprise, the state represented by Cherokee Embarrassment, Kevin Stitt, right? Kevin Stitt, of course, who signed legislation recently to take away a woman's right to her own body relevant to abortions. That guy, right? A Native American student was forced to remove an eagle feather prior to her high school graduation ceremony in northeastern Oklahoma. Article goes on here to say. Broken Arrow student Lena Black, who is Oto Missouri and Osage, same tribe that our good friend Johnny J is from. She told the Tulsa World the feather was attached to her mortarboard and that she had been told previously that the feather would be allowed because of its cultural significance. Black said she passed several checkpoints before being approached by a school counselor and a security guard. How typical. Because again, I guess non-Indigenous people or non-people of color find us so threatening. How many times we hear this, brother?
Yeah.
Why,
More times than we should.
Why is it necessary to come up with a cop?
Right.
Again, Black said she passed several checkpoints before being approached by a school counselor and a security guard who tried to forcibly remove the feather. Quote, I had to take off my cap, Black said. They kept trying to take it off of me. So that's assault, wouldn't it be? In many states?
Oh, yes.
If I'm wearing my hat, in this case, a graduation cap, and somebody reaches for you, I shouldn't do that with my right shoulder, sorry. In most states, there is a 1 to 3 foot barrier around your body that you are allowed to protect legally. So if I don't care if it's school official, and in this case, a school security officer, don't touch us. Don't touch anybody, for that matter. But apparently, in this case, they tried to forcibly take the cap off of her. Goes on here to say the district's website states that the mortarboards are to be without decorations, and the confrontation was due to a miscommunication about the required protocols. Well, let's Let's break that one down. This is a graduation. Therefore, any of the school officials, meaning teachers, counselors, everybody of the school staff, I would think is supposed to be up to speed with graduation protocols. And that means policies and procedures. Am I reaching too far, brother?
No,
Am I
no, you're
reading
not
into
reaching too.
this?
You're not reaching too far at all. As a past educator, it was part of my job to be apprised of any communications or policies or whatever that came across the desk of the school board, the principal, whatever. This wasn't a miscommunication. That
Now,
was
oh, I'm sorry, go
that
ahead.
was that was a counselor being a butthole.
Because here's how I'm going to justify my statement a moment ago. Oklahoma has a very high population of indigenous people, high concentration. Therefore, they're very familiar with items of significance that one might wear from one of our communities out there. So to say it was a miscommunication that this person over here wasn't up to speed on a particular policy, that's not the student's fault.
No,
That's not Lena Black's fault. That is the fault of communication between the staff, the teachers. And then on top of that, they tried to forcibly take her cap off. So as far as
well,
I'm
I'm
concerned,
gonna.
there's. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Finish. Go ahead and finish.
So I'm going to say there's two violations there. One, a violation within themselves for not being up to speed with policy. That most likely I would think that there was discussions with tribal leaders about a growing problem in this country, quite frankly, about high school students being harassed over items sacred to them.
Right.
An analogy that I used last time this came up was, so is a white Jewish student going to get harassed for wearing the Star of David?
Well,
No,
I'm. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no. They're not going to be met with that same level of resistance.
No, they're not. I'm going to put the monkey square on the back of that counselor because, as the article stated, the young lady passed several checkpoints and nobody said anything to her.
Yeah. So
So
they were up to
again,
speed on policy, I guess, right?
absolutely. So again, this counselor was being a butthole. He was just being a butthole to this girl, and it's not that he didn't know. Of course, he knew, or she knew. They knew. They just didn't want this child to wear her feather,
Yep.
which was a cultural item, which meant something to her. It was a significant cultural item that she's waited her whole life to participate in. Graduation.
Many, often, for example, our ceremonial regalia, we wear things that have significant meaning to us. Yes, from our culture, but oftentimes they're things that are handed down generation to generation. That I know any American can understand. That or any American parent that has children can understand. Oh, that used to be my grandma's.
All right.
What makes you think it's any different with us? It just
Correct.
might be an object that you're not familiar with. Maybe in this case it's a feather. Maybe it's something else. I'm just tired of the double standard. I'm completely sick and tired of the double standard in this country.
It is a double standard, but again, this counselor wins the Butthole of the Week award because the article states other indigenous students wore regalia during the ceremony and nothing was said to them or done to them. So
Here's
why
the
did this guy, I'm
exactly.
sorry?
No, you're right,
Yeah,
brother. Go
so
ahead.
so why did this counselor feel that they were justified in confronting this student, this child, and tried to forcibly remove her feather.
So here's another piece of inconsistency on the part of the school system here, and and the staff. Again, going back to the article, the district's website states that the mortar boards are to be without decorations, and the confrontation was due to miscommunication about the required protocols for approval of adding culturally significant items, according to the school Indian education coordinator, Rich Papa. However, they said other indigenous students wore regalia during the ceremony, Papa said. There it is.
Okay. That's why I said the counselor wins the Butthole of the Week award.
But not only that, I'm going to read between the lines a little bit. It says here, approval of adding culturally significant items. Why the hell does a student have to go before a board or some entity that is not from our culture, not from our communities, and say, can I please wear this? No. We're going to wear it. And see, what we've had in the past is some schools have actually threatened to deny giving a student a diploma for not complying by doing something like leaving their feathers home, for example. We've had, in other instances somewhat similar to this. We've even had, folks on the show. But here's the ultimate point. Black's mother, Marcy Black, said that they were not told of any protocols and have received an apology from the district. She said, quote, I want this to never happen to another Native student. They ruined something she has worked her whole life to achieve. Marcy Black, again, the mother. They don't care, though. We will get another story next year.
Yep. And one
from
after that.
Another school system.
And one after that.
In a heavily populated indigenous area.
Yep.
Where they know better. But they do not care.
Well, again, I'm putting the monkey and the onus totally on that one counselor because they can't say they didn't know. They can't say they didn't know.
Here to back that up, brother, right here. State schools superintendent Joy Hoffmeister issued a letter in January to state schools asking them to review policies on indigenous students wearing tribal regalia, feathers, and other culturally significant items. So they were already, and you have to assume in this case, policy was enacted that started as far back as January, couple months after school started.
Oh, it goes further back than that.
Yep, the letter included a 2019 letter from then Attorney General Mike Hunter that an indigenous student's right to wear eagle feathers on their mortarboards is protected under the Oklahoma Religious Freedom Act. Well, guess what? These tribes are also federally recognized and have protections of also Religious Freedom Act for Native people at the federal level. So you're also violating federal law.
Yep.
The Native American Religious Freedom Act, it's called. But where's the consequence? How many times? I'm so tired of asking why there is no punishment for these violations. This country operates on no consequences. That's what births you people like Donald Trump and others. When there's no threat to their livelihoods, and in some cases, depending on the offense, their freedoms to move around this country, i.e. jail, prison. But something as simple as a high school girl who just wants to graduate and show her pride, an expression of her culture, is met with this crap by non-Indigenous people and their policies, laws, and systems. It's time for it to stop. Yesterday.
Oh, yeah. It is time. But we see it year after year after year.
Yep. And your governor there in Oklahoma, again, I'll say it a second time, embarrassment to Cherokee Nation. You, sir, have a responsibility to our people, as well as the rest of the state. But the rest of the state doesn't have this problem, Kevin.
Nope.
Our people have this problem in your state.
Cause Kevin's a Nino.
All right. Let's move on, brother.
I'm not giving him any breaks. He doesn't deserve it. Baby formula.
This has had me in a quandary. Oh, I just gotta adjust my there we go. My big reader here.
So
okay.
Why is there a shortage of baby formula in this country? You know, they can try to use all kinds of excuses like supply and demand.
Well,
We can't get the formula because of this excuse or that excuse.
Well, the central excuse that I've been hearing, and again, sadly, I still watch way too much mainstream, corporate news, and the reassured theme from them is that because of one plant in the United States that was basically selling poisoned baby formula, because I guess there was 1 or 2 infant deaths that were directly attributed to it. You would think that would shut it down permanently, but no, they're kind of like, bad, fix your stuff, and then we'll allow you to reopen.
Yep.
And that's the story that's been peddled now for the last month.
Well, it's a convenient distraction. They have a boogeyman, so let's run with it. They're saying, truly, but there's about 4 companies that dominate the baby formula industry. About 4. Now, this is an article from Politico, and Meredith Lee and Helena Bottle Miller Evich penned this article. And rightfully so, in the country, there's an uproar over formula shortages. So why is the lawmaking body just now confronting how a federal nutrition program helped dominate the U.S. market just by a small handful of formula manufacturers? This program, called WIC, is the largest purchaser of formula in the U.S. And a lot of people don't understand the origins of WIC, and it doesn't get the true, what word do I want to use? It doesn't get the true credit. The creators of the program itself don't get the credit they should. And believe it or not, women, infant, and children's programs was started back in the 70s. And the Black Panthers were the originators of the original plan for WIC, because they would feed the children in the neighborhood free breakfast before going to school. or if they were in the afternoon programs at the afternoon school programs, the kids would get lunch.
Lunch programs. Yep.
Yep. So, a lot of people don't understand that this was something that the Black Panthers had been doing for neighborhoods around the country long before the federal government said, "Oh, this is a good idea, but we're not going to give them credit for it."
Hmm.
So, more than half of the infant formula in the US goes through the program. And there's just two companies, brother, two companies that serve close to 90% of the infants who receive benefits through the program, in part because the way WIC awards its contracts makes it easy for those two companies to make a lot of money.
Yep.
Now, the article states lawmakers, particularly Democrats, are zeroing in on that reality as they try to prevent another infant formula shortage, like the one that triggered in part by a single formula plant, the one you just mentioned,
Hmm.
closure in Michigan in February. They acknowledge, however, that Congress, hold on to your butts, Congress
Hmm.
doesn't have the time or the political will to tackle larger reforms right now,
Then you know
and
what
are
I say to
instead,
that? Then you're all
yeah,
fired, and we'll replace you as quickly as we possibly can. If you don't have the time to address and do your jobs,
right,
I would
and
I
are
would love
instead,
I would love to know if that's simply the author. I don't remember who the author was on this, but if that was the author's point of view, or if that was an actual quote from someone within, ready, the Democratic Party.
well, they acknowledge, they meaning, the Dems or Republicans or a combination thereof, that
The,
Congress doesn't have the time or political will to tackle larger reforms right now.
the bottom line is, guys, they're all the same.
Of course they are.
Okay, okay. There's no, when you're forced to have to choose which party that you're going to quote unquote affiliate yourself with, in some states will actually allow you to be an independent and or a non-affiliated. Anyway, I'm just so tired of the nonsense. There is no difference. They're
No.
useless. They're pointless, by and large,
Yeah.
and they're not there to help us.
No. Although I will give them a warm, fuzzy rub on the head, the House easily passed the WIC bill Wednesday evening with with a rare bipartisan vote of 414 to 9. Yeah,
Which means
that
its next
9
stop
that,
is where? Where is it stop?
yeah, the Senate.
The
So, they
Senate.
passed the 28 billion emergency spending bill to help the FDA restock shelves and bolster food safety. So, it's really sad to, you know, it's really sad when they have to pass bills
Hmm.
to ensure that baby formula is protected and doesn't run out.
Yeah, next stop, the Senate, which
Yeah.
will do nothing. Nothing.
No. Now, Abbott Nutrition was one of those companies that dominates the baby food industry. But they shuttered their plant in Sturgis, Michigan in February. And that's the plant that was linked to 4 cases of rare bacterial infection. And two of those 4 infants who became ill and hospitalized died. Now, I, I'm at a loss to understand why the FDA doesn't perform more stringent inspections why the labs the FDA owns does not pull out all the stops to ensure that all of this baby formula is as safe as it can be, as well as the other food that goes out to consumers. But Abbott reached a deal with the FDA on the necessary steps to reopen the plant. And they think, oh, well, maybe it's going to take 2 weeks. That's the slap on the wrist you mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. Remember, I mentioned there were four other makers that dominate the market
Yep. I
besides
was just
Abbott.
looking up one of them. Yep.
There's Mead Johnson. To a lesser extent, the article says Nestle and Perigio, or
Nestle, the
whatever,
same company that likes to
Pierogi,
steal.
whatever their name is.
The same company, Nestle, that likes to steal water resources.
Yeah.
By the way, you know the
Now,
chocolate
these
company,
four,
guys. Nestle, the chocolate company. It's also the
yeah.
largest bottler in the world
Hmm.
of spring water, so to speak. That steals, the the water shortages that go on in California and all the wildfires because they don't really have any water to fight fires out there. Yeah, that company. They also make baby formula.
Right. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and this is coming from me. It's not coming from my brother or the show specifically, but this is coming from me. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say that these shortages were not by accident. And here's what makes me say that. The Abbott recall and resulting shortages were especially disruptive for WIC recipients. About half of all babies born in the US qualify for WIC, which serves low income families.
Mm-hmm.
Many of these households don't have the time or resources to drive around looking for alternative formula brands or scour the internet for available stocks. Now, the mindset that exists is they think they're harming people of color if they do this. Well, that may be true, but if you look at the numbers, larger percentages of non people of color are really low income families. I can point you to two states in particular, Kentucky and West Virginia. They're both red states.
Both red states. Oh, West Virginia. Who's their senator?
Yeah,
Joe
you got it.
Manchin. What are you doing
You
about it,
got it.
Joe? Huh?
Kentucky's the other one. That's Mitch
Yep,
McConnell's state.
that's Mitch
Mitch
McConnell. Yep.
McConnell and Rand Paul, as a matter of fact.
Turtle Man, who's just as asleep as Joe Biden. All right. They don't have any baby formula. Whose fault is that? Something should be done about that. Yeah, Mitch McConnell.
Right. Now, the article states even if parents and caregivers could find alternative formulas, their WIC benefits may not have covered the specific brand they could find when the shortages first hit. Now, the article states for the past 3 decades, WIC has used what's called the sole source contracting, which is designed to save the program money by allowing the states to buy formula far below retail prices. The National WIC Association estimates that the state rebates save about 1 billion in cost each year. So I bet you can't guess what three companies have been awarded contracts during this time.
Yeah. Is one of them Nestle?
Uh-huh. Abbott, Mead Johnson, and Nestle. Now, Abbott leads the pack with 49 WIC contracts with states, territories, and tribal organizations. According to data from the National WIC Association. That translates into about 47% of the 1.2 million infants getting formula benefits through the WIC program. Excuse me. Do I need to keep going here, folks? Are we seeing what's happening here? I do.
Well, I mean, I guess one of the things, and I'm going to easily show my ignorance to a certain degree on the subject, but I always look to history and certain things, and you know, before the existence of the United States, I think our women were doing just fine without formula.
Absolutely.
So, now I understand there's medical conditions today, where ladies just can't make enough milk to support their child, properly, and there's, things that, come up in that regard, but to rely on, I think I'm seeing here, 4 companies, one of which is a national corporation, Nestle. I don't know about the other 3, but the fact that you can affect so many mothers this way, and yet, the very, again, people that we're supposed to be relying on to fix it, again, just to emphasize it, fix it. I know you can't hear that, brother, but my echo. Won't. You heard it stated in the article itself. The article itself said no political will.
Right. And you know why there's no political will? Because a bunch of dead guys printed on paper.
Exactly. Certainly.
Well, here's the other reason. The United States, I'll just say Western medicine. I'll clarify that and say Western medicine discourages breastfeeding.
Yeah,
it discourages breastfeeding.
That's pretty much it in a nutshell. I mean, like I said, I know there's the circumstances where there are ladies who cannot produce enough breast milk, and they use Similac and other products to supplement what they cannot produce themselves. Even my own mother, I seem to recall conversations about that. But to have developed a market and make it, like everything else in this friggin' country, capitalistic endeavor to the detriment and health of these babies. And you have, you're again, no political wills because, well, I don't want to disrupt my cash cow as a sitting senator, Manchin, and others. Like 90% of your elected officials, hello. This is something, as you know, brother, I listen to TYT a lot, the Young Turks, as the leading progressive news network. But I still ask them, and I still haven't gotten a response from them. How come you guys don't publish a list that shows every single corporate Republican and Democrat so that everybody knows who the hell these people are? We know the main offenders in most cases. We've already mentioned a few of them on the show today. But I would think it would be very, very helpful because I know they're very good at pulling figures as far as their donors. But we need to get that out to more and more people so people understand what we're up against relevant to, these kind of situations. Why isn't there political will? It's blatantly obvious. But a lot of people don't know because they don't follow politics, and they just, okay, it's time to vote. I'm a registered Democrat, or I'm a registered Republican. I'm just going to vote with my party, and not understand the issues at all.
Well, to answer your question, somebody in the party that starts with an R complained that there was no political will, or the program got sidelined because of President Biden's environmental program.
Oh, please. And then, and the Democrats fire back and blah, blah, blah. And it becomes a big bunch of nothing. Nobody wants to do anything. I don't have any time for that anymore.
Correct.
What I have time for is actual action and consequences.
Well,
let's start actually putting some people in jail and pulling some other people that don't belong in jail out.
Well, I'm waiting for that. I'm waiting for that lightning bolt to strike.
Well, I'm waiting, but I'm not holding my breath.
No, nor am I.
Yep.
All right, folks. The rest of this will be on the show notes. It's quite an interesting article. Excuse me. So let's see what happens. I know that a few thousand pounds of formula had been sent from, I think, Germany. And there were a couple of other places that had sent formula or will be sending formula. So some of the formula is appearing on store shelves. Granted, they're not overflowing with product, but there is some formula making its way into the country. I just, when we allow this sort of thing to happen, it's just a matter of time before the things that really, really should matter stop mattering, because not to us, but to the lawmakers. They're like, eh.
Yep.
And we have an example of that coming up, of things that have reached a point of lawmakers not giving a rat's ass.
Yep, precisely. The title of this next segment I'm calling Thoughts and Prayers, with a sprinkling of a call to end violence, to end gun violence, excuse me. Let's try to take that again, brother. Sorry. And that's a nice segue into this next segment, which I've entitled Thoughts and Prayers, with a sprinkling of a call to end gun violence. So, as the title of this segment should ring familiar, with those words and phrases that, in this host's opinion anyway, that really means to do nothing. It's been emotional last 15 days or so, I would say, for most of us. The only ones who are not emotional, it would appear, are Republicans and Democrats. Now, to kind of sum up at least how I feel, I think that Golden State Warriors coach Steve Kerr honestly sums it up the best, and I want to play his statement for you guys right now.
6 hours. We're going to start the same way tonight. Any basketball questions don't matter. Since we left shoot-around, 14 children were killed 400 miles from here, and a teacher. And in the last 10 days, we've had elderly black people killed in a supermarket in Buffalo. We've had Asian churchgoers killed in Southern California. And now we have children murdered at school. When are we going to do something? I'm tired. I'm so tired of getting up here and offering condolences to the devastated families that are out there. I'm so tired of I'm sorry. I'm tired of the moments of silence. Enough. There's 50 senators right now who refuse to vote on H.R. 8, which is a background check rule that the House passed a couple of years ago. It's been sitting there for 2 years. And there's a reason they won't vote on it, to hold on to power. So I ask you, Mitch McConnell, I ask all of you senators who refuse to do anything about the violence and school shootings and supermarket shootings, I ask you, are you going to put your own desire for power ahead of the lives of our children and our elderly and our churchgoers? Because that's what it looks like. It's what we do every week. So I'm fed up. I've had enough. We're going to play the game tonight, but I want every person here, every person listening to this to think about your own child or grandchild or mother or father or sister, brother. How would you feel if this happened to you today? We can't get numb to this. We can't sit here and just read about it and go, well, let's have a moment of silence. Yeah, go Dubs, you know. Come on, Mavs, let's go. That's what we're going to do. We're going to go play a basketball game. And 50 senators in Washington are going to hold us hostage. Do you realize that 90% of Americans, regardless of political party, want background check, universal background check? 90% of us, we are being held hostage by 50 senators in Washington who refuse to even put it to a vote, despite what we, the American people, want. They won't vote on it because they want to hold on to their own power. It's pathetic. I've had enough.
So, now, you and I, brother, have had, discussions about, guns and gun ownership in the past. A lot, by and large, we're on the same page relevant to gun violence, obviously. My position still remains that I don't understand why the hell people need most of these guns. You've corrected me as far as, I guess, the definition of an assault rifle, which is not, an AR-15 is not an assault rifle, and I recognize that. In fact, the AR does not stand for assault rifle. It stands for I think the gun manufacturer itself. But this problem is beyond getting worse. I don't even want to get into a debate about mental problems in the country versus guns don't kill people, people with guns kill people, the whole whatever. Anyway, let me just sort of turn it over to you, brother, and see if you've got some comments, and I've got some other stuff I've got to load up here. A few more things to say about it.
I do have some comments. Coach Kerr was correct in most of what he said. There are universal background checks. If someone purchases a gun at a gun show legally, or someone purchases a gun at a gun store or gun shop, there is a universal background check. That's a distraction statement, not from Coach Kerr, but from the politicians themselves. They know that there are universal background checks when someone purchases a gun legally. They know. But they'll throw things out there like that to distract people from the fact that they don't want to pass any kind of gun laws because of the money that they get from the manufacturing industry. It's not just the NRA, it's also the gun industry, the manufacturers of the various makes and models of guns. So, see, they get big compensation to not vote against things that will cost the gun manufacturers money. Now, here's a true fact. You can research it out there, listeners, if you want. But after every mass shooting like this, gun sales go up. Why is that? Why does that happen? What is it about mass murders via guns that causes people to run out and buy more guns? I'll tell you why. It's an insane fear of, oh crap, now the government's going to come get our guns. We better go buy as much as we can and hoard them. That was a conditioning put in place by Republican lawmakers a number of years ago. You remember Sandy Hook, brother?
Absolutely. 20 minutes away from me.
This day, when a searing tragedy struck in a place parents felt their children were safe. The worst grade school shooting in U.S. history, at least 27 dead, 20 children, 7 adults, including the principal. And the gunman killed himself. And all over this town, in churches like the United Methodist Church behind us, well, the lights are on and they are still open for prayer tonight.
And they will be all night. People have been gathering here for prayer, to lean on each other and lean on a belief in something bigger than themselves, to help get through what is just impossible to believe here or anywhere else. The sentiment here echoed in what you're seeing now down by the Washington Monument in D.C. Many members of the Connecticut delegation was there, but this story is really about their home here, Newtown, Connecticut, just 27,000 people. This is a place where people know each other, families know each other. And what happened today is known by all. And it's not just about how many were lost, it's about the age. What is hitting everyone so hard is the reality of these being children that were targeted by a madman. We now know his name. We know he's 20 years old, Adam Lanza. We know that before he came to this school, he shot his own mother, Nancy, in the face, killing her at her home. The looming question is why this man then decided to come to this school. He shows up at a place where they're making gingerbread houses in preparation for the holidays and Christmas presents. Just kids. A man in black enters with a vest and multiple weapons and begins a massacre. It was a clear, crisp, and trouble-free start to the morning at Sandy Hook Elementary School. Kids like Ella Sievers and her mother Amy,
just do the elk dance, but you don't...
eager for the weekend and the holidays to arrive.
It's Christmas time, right? Where are we, Mom, in terms of Christmas planning?
Some shopping, cookie making. We decorated our Christmas tree.
Ella, Christmas list made?
Mm-hmm.
Sent to Santa?
Yes.
Ella's class was preparing to make gingerbread houses.
When you first got there?
When I first got there, it was like a regular day.
But at 9:41 a.m., the children's day and their innocence is shattered.
6-7 Sandy Hook School. Caller's indicating she thinks there's someone shooting in the building.
We heard a loud bang. We thought that something fell. Then we heard another. And then we thought that that was a gunshot.
What do you remember?
We got to school. We did everything we needed to, and then we heard all this racket. Then we heard them say, go in your cubbies. We thought we had to go because something bad was happening.
What did the teacher do then?
She read us some books, and we talked about things, and they played little games in there.
And while that was going on, your teacher was reading you books and keeping you calm?
Yeah.
She just kept her calm and told you a story?
She read us The Nutcracker and another book that was about Christmas.
How did you find out, Amy?
Well, we got a phone call from the school saying the schools were in lockdown.
Lockdown? I mean, what sense does that make to you as a word for your kids' kindergarten through 4 school?
Not very good.
Police quickly converge on the school, secure the perimeter, and start a painstaking search for the shooter.
A police came in. It's like, is he in here? Then he ran out.
That included checking every door, every crack, every crevice, every portion of that school Our main objective was to evacuate as quickly and efficiently as possible any and all students and faculty in the school.
It takes an agonizing hour before it becomes clear just what's taking place inside the school. Next come ominous signs. Ambulances are called, stretchers set up. By 10:30 a.m., police and teachers escort groups of traumatized students out of the school, kids who give the first indications of the terrible scene inside.
Kids were crying, not really like screaming, but they're all huddling together, and they felt so sick.
We all put our hands on other people's shoulders, and then our teacher held the first person's hand, and she let us out.
Did you keep your eyes closed?
Yes.
The whole time?
Mm-hmm.
And when you opened them, where were you?
We were walking down to the fire station.
The children are taken to the fire department where frantic parents swarm, desperate to find out if their kids are safe.
It was terrifying. I'm still terrified. I think I'm still in shock about it all. I still don't know everything that happened. You're rushing over here and you can't get to where you need to go, and you have to park down here and walk.
When a son or daughter is found, the relief is immense.
I was so happy. I just hugged her.
What goes through your mind when you see her?
Oh my God, this is the best day of my life, the worst day of my life. Just gratefulness. Yeah, gratefulness. I mean, the tears come to your eyes immediately when you know that your child's okay.
But too many families aren't as lucky. Minutes drag by, no answers on what's going on inside the school. As news trickles out, the worst becomes obvious. Not all of the reunions between parent and child will be happy ones.
Okay, these units in the school, I got bodies here.
By 11 a.m., police give the first indications that there are multiple fatalities inside. By 11:50 a.m., they announce most of the fatalities are children. It is almost unimaginable. 27 dead, 20 children. News of the second worst shooting in U.S. history smothers the country.
I know there's not a parent in America who doesn't feel the same overwhelming grief that I do. The majority of those who died today were children. Beautiful little kids between the ages of 5 and 10 years old. They had their entire lives ahead of them. Birthdays, graduations, weddings, kids of their own.
The man responsible for taking these lives, 20-year-old Adam Lanza, shown here in a 2005 photo. Lanza's body found in a classroom after he took his own life. He was armed for war, say authorities, wearing a bulletproof vest and carrying 2 semi-automatic handguns. A semi-automatic rifle was found in his car. Authorities had originally confused him with his older brother Ryan because he was carrying his brother's ID. Lanza had apparently shot his own mother in the face before doing what we still can't understand, heading to the school. Principal Dawn Hochsprung, one of those killed, ironically issued a new security alert letter to parents just this fall. Tonight, Newtown residents gather to pray for strength to get over the events that have rocked this small town, as well as the lives of the most innocent among us.
Evil visited this community today.
Our hearts are broken today for the parents and grandparents, sisters and brothers of these little children, and for the families of the adults who were lost. Our hearts are broken for the parents of the survivors as well. For as blessed as they are to have their children home tonight, they know that their children's innocence has been torn away from them too early.
It's not real because it's not here. It doesn't happen here. And you know what? The 6 degrees of separation, we know those families. There will be families and friends that we know.
You know some people got hurt, right?
Yes.
You know that it's over?
I didn't know when it was over, and I probably would have never known when it was over.
Well, it's over, okay? You know that now?
Yes.
And what happened there today happened, and it's over. Okay? And you have to be happy that you're okay.
And of course, for the Sievers, so much of why they wanted to come forward is because they feel for the families who are not as lucky as they were to get Ella to come home. And while it is over for that little girl and her family, it's not for their reach into the community, and this is going to be with them for a very long time.
They share in that grief. I know that they do. And I think over the next few days, we know we're going to be hearing so many more stories of courage from little children and also from these teachers who held hands and prayed with the children and tried to keep the tragedy from becoming even worse. And I spent the day this afternoon, I spent some time with one young woman who wanted us to know what all the teachers do in that school, how much they care about their children, as she told her story. She is first grade teacher Caitlin Roig, who's taught at Sandy Hook for 6 years, and she suppressed her own fear to make sure her students believed that they were going to have a Christmas, they were going to have a Hanukkah, and they would come through this together. It was 9:35 in the morning when 29-year-old Caitlin Roig began her morning class.
When it happened, it was during our morning meeting, and literally right in the middle of that was when it started.
What started? What did you hear?
The shooting. I'm in the first classroom.
And did you know it was shooting?
I knew it was shooting immediately.
It was just repetitive sounds?
Yeah, it sounded like the type of gun that just shoots over and over and over again. And so I heard that, and I knew immediately that something was obviously very wrong. And I got up and I closed our door. It wasn't locked, but I closed it. And I just told all of our students that we had to get in the bathroom. It was all I could think of. I knew we had to be hidden.
And how many children?
I have 16 students. One was absent today, so 15.
15 frightened first graders. One cramped place to hide. And so you got them in the bathroom?
It's probably 3 feet by 2 feet. It's very small. I picked some of them up and put them on top of the toilet. I put one of my students on top of the toilet dispenser. I just knew we had to get in there.
And are you layered on top of each other?
We were all very, very close.
Did they cry?
No, if they started crying, I would like take their face and say, "It's gonna be okay. Show me your smile." Like I really tried to and one of my students was, would say like things like, "I know karate, so it's okay. I'll lead the way out." Like really trying to be courageous and try to take over, and so obviously I said, "Okay, well, we really need to stay here right now. We just need to be calm and still and quiet."
So even in the first grade, they knew.
We were right there. I mean, we're the first room, so we heard it so clearly. They knew something was obviously very wrong.
Many members of the emergency service units from this town and the surrounding towns.
Did you tell them to be quiet? Did you worry about one of them?
No, I told them to be quiet. I told them we had to be absolutely quiet because I was just so afraid that if he did come in and then he would hear us and then he would maybe just start shooting the door. So I said, no, we just have to be absolutely quiet. And I said, there are bad guys out there now. We need to wait for the good guys. As their teacher, I'm their protector. I'm the one who's always there to help them, usually with schoolwork. So for me to have to listen to them say things like, I just want to go home and have Christmas. And, I was just trying to tell them, you will, we're going to be okay, but we have to be positive. We have to think positive.
They really said to you, we want to go home for Christmas.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or I just want to hug my mom, or just, things like that were just heartbreaking, and like in my mind, because you're hearing, I've never been a part of something obviously anywhere near this traumatic, and so I'm hearing the gunfire in the hallway, and I'm thinking in my mind, I'm the first classroom. Why isn't he coming? I'm thinking we're next, and and in my mind I'm thinking, as a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, what are your thoughts? What are your, and I'm thinking that I have to almost be their parent. Like I have to tell them, so I said to them, I need you to know that I love you all very much and that it's going to be okay, because I thought that was the last thing they were ever going to hear. I thought we were all going to die. And I don't know if that's okay, teachers and, but I wanted them to know someone loved them, and I wanted that to be one of the last things they heard. Not the gunfire in the hallway. It's just so horrible. Horrible. I just wanted my kids and me to live. Like, that's all. I'm not a hero. Like, I was just thinking, where can we go? And it happened to be the bathroom, I wanted us to be okay. And I'm so saddened that there are people who in this situation are not okay. And my heart goes out to anyone who knew them and was a part of their lives. I just can't imagine.
How did you know you were going to be okay?
What finally happened was the gunfire stopped. The police came and started knocking, and obviously, I mean, I was completely beside myself. And I said, I don't believe you. You need to put your badges under the door. So they put their badges under the door. And in my mind, I'm like, this doesn't really look like a real badge.
You didn't believe the badges,
Right.
so...
So I said, if you're really a police officer, then you would have a way to get in here. You would have a key, or you would have gotten it from the janitor. If everything's okay now, you would have found the keys. So he had the keys, and he found the right one, and he unlocked the door.
Down the hill from the school, dozens of parents gathered at the firehouse waiting to find out if their children had survived.
What did you say to your children as you're walking to that firehouse?
We're okay. We're okay. It's gonna be okay.
Do you wonder who did this?
Absolutely. And why? Why? You know? They're innocent children.
And again, Chris, she wanted to say that she knows every single teacher in that school was doing what she was doing for the children that they love.
And yet, she raises the question at the end, why? Why did this teacher have to be put in this position? Why did these kids have to be put in this position? And of course, it brings us to the person in this story who deserves attention the least in many ways, the gunman, Adam Lanza. And yet, we do look to who he is. We do try to understand why this happened. Hopefully, it will be a window into some type of understanding of how to not make this happen again.
Right. Sandy Hook, where that's probably the most talked about school shooting to date, where 20 children, I think, and 6 teachers were murdered. And the NRA and the gun industry found out that they could use that to their advantage, and they did quite effectively. And there's just so much wrong with that. Mental illness is a component, but that's the other distraction. Blame mental illness, blame mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
They won't know the difference.
Yep.
That's a very small component. So, another distraction. They know that something needs to be done, and they meaning the lawmakers. They know that something needs to be done. But it's not lucrative for them to do so. As Coach Kerr mentioned, they want to try to hold on to power. Well, that's true too. The longer they can hold on to power, the more money they can amass. So see, we gave up the ability to pull the lawmakers up by the short hairs if they're not doing our bidding. We gave up that power over them. And we'll probably never get it back. Representatives at one time had to bring back a bill to their constituency and put it to vote within the state. That used to be a thing. And it stopped being a thing when lawmakers decided that, wait a minute, we don't have to answer to them. We answer to those that are paying us.
Correct.
Yeah. So lawmakers no longer bring a bill back to their constituents to say, okay, what should I do? They no longer do that. Their corporate masters tell them, this is what we want, and this is what you're going to do. So, here we are. What do we do about it? We do have the power. We just have to wrest the power back from those that have stolen it and that we willingly gave it to. We have more power than people realize. Those dead people printed on paper that I mentioned, that's the number one power that we have. Talk about pulling them up by the short hairs. Corporations are scared crapless that we'll figure that out. So they keep telling you that you need to buy more of this, you need to buy more of that. And guns is one of those things. They're going to come get your guns. Be ready to resist them. This was Republican mind speak.
Correct.
What we need now is a top to bottom security overhaul at schools all across our country.
Right here in front of me, I have a Sig Sauer P226. Comes with a 21 round magazine. This gun would be banned. Here's a 12 round magazine. This magazine would be banned under this current bill. It doesn't fit because this gun was made for a 21 round magazine. This gun would be banned under this bill. Here's a Sig Sauer 320. It takes a 20 round magazine. Here's a 12 round magazine that would be banned. It doesn't fit because it would be banned. This gun would be banned under this bill. Here's a gun I carry every single day to protect myself, my family, my wife, my home. This is a XL Sig Sauer P365. Comes with a 15 round magazine. Here's a 7 round magazine, which would be less than what would be lawful under this bill if this bill were to become law. It doesn't fit. So this gun would be banned.
I hope the gun is not loaded.
I'm at my house. I can do whatever I want with my guns.
Now we know. Now we know where they want to go. They just said it. End the filibuster, expand the court, forget the Constitution. Now we know. Democrats blame guns. They criticize the NRA. They call Republicans names. But let's be honest. They've told us what they want to do. Their real beef is with the Second Amendment. Their real beef is with the Second Amendment. Think about what this bill does. Mr. Massey just outlined the 6 bills thrown into one. What this bill does, it tells law-abiding citizens when you can get a gun, what kind of gun you can get, what accessories you can get for your gun, and where and how you have to store it in your own darn home. That's what this bill does. This is the Judiciary Committee. You would think there would be the proper respect for the Constitution and for decisions reached by our circuit courts. Nope. Nope, we are so focused on taking away people's liberty. It's frightening to me when you put it all in context and you think about what the Democrats are trying to do to First Amendment liberties, now to Second Amendment liberties. This is what frightens the American people, and that's why we should vote this bill down, and we should come together as a bipartisan in a bipartisan way to figure out what we can do to help make schools safe, make sure that people are properly trained there, make sure the facility is the way it needs to be. We're all for that.
19 kids are dead. 19 children are dead. And so to my Republican colleagues, I ask, who are you here for? Are you here for our kids, or are you here for the killers? Because if you were here for the kids, you would do all you could to protect the next school shooting that's about to happen. And we know what's going to happen in America. You would vote to raise the age on purchasing an assault rifle. You would vote to ban high-capacity magazines. You would vote to require safe storage. And you would vote to address ghost guns, which are ravaging communities across America. But if you're here for the killers, you would do everything to make it easier for the next school shooting to happen. And Mr. Jordan, to say we are trying to dramatically change the country, if trying to make sure that no more kids are put in the ground with a Superman coffin means dramatically change the country, guilty. That's why we're here. Kids are going in the ground today, and you call that trying to dramatically change the country. Why aren't you trying to dramatically change the number of dead kids going into the ground, Mr. Jordan? Who are you here for, the kids or the killers? My Republican colleagues are here for carnival games. They say it's about mental health. Okay, we try and fund mental health, they vote against it. They say it's about schools. We try and fund the schools, fund the teachers. They vote against it. They say it's about policing. $300 million in the American Rescue Plan for community policing. They all voted against it. And they don't want to listen to the police. If they listen to the police, they'd listen to the major cities' chiefs who have called for background checks, red flag laws, banning bump stocks, and banning high-capacity magazines. My favorite, it's about the family. We need to address the family issues in America. But we don't want to help feed a family. We're going to make it harder for kids to live on food stamps. We don't want to help a family learn. We're going to go after teachers in America. We don't want to help kids go to college. We don't want to give them jobs. We're going to vote against the infrastructure and jobs bill. And then they say that laws don't work. But they have no problem crafting laws to take away a woman's right to make her own healthcare decision. That law must work. They have no problem going after laws to ban drugs. There's plenty of laws on the books to ban drugs, but no, it's all about the person. Laws don't work when you have evil in our country. That's what they tell us. And then they tell us that we're in a country where you have violent video games, mental health problems, schools that can't be secured, and too many gun-free zones. And their solution to that is to put more of the most dangerous weapons into that mix. That's insane. They're also out of touch with the overwhelming majority of gun owners in America. An organization called 97% just put out a poll that said among gun owners, and they only polled gun owners, 86% support background checks, 76% support safe storage, 67% support red flag laws. Those are gun owners. So who are you here for? Our kids or the killers? I'm here for people like Alex Navarro. She's a Moms Demand Action leader in the San Francisco Bay Area. And last week, after I convened a meeting among my constituents and people like Fred Guttenberg and Dr. Joe Saccharin, an emergency room physician at Johns Hopkins, Alex Navarro told my constituents that her 6-year-old daughter, after Uvalde, after seeing the images behind me, said to her, "Mom, what picture are you going to use for me? What picture are you going to use for me?" That's what children are asking their parents across America, because they don't believe they're going to come out alive. What picture are you going to use for me? We're supposed to be the protectors. We're supposed to be here for the kids. And so to my colleagues today who flew in town, came to work, got ready to argue, my question is, why did you come here at all? Why did you come here at all? If you're not here for the children, why don't you go to the funeral of the killer? Because that's the only place where the killer is being celebrated. We're here to get things done and protect our kids. What's your job? I yield back.
But not just Republican mind speak, but I mean, they're definitely leading the charge in this problem, no question. All right, but because you have Democrats that refuse, that still want to convey this false narrative that they want to work with Republicans. I'm trying to remember the quote by Nancy Pelosi recently about wishing that they would do better, or wishing that there was some common sense Republicans left in their party. Some crap.
Oh,
another distraction, like you talked about, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. This is also, in my view, about the fact that they won't get off their ass and remove the filibuster.
There you go.
Okay.
Which is not in the Constitution, by the way.
That's correct. Also, the fact that, because it spins back to political will. So case in point, here's Kamala Harris talking at a conference. This is the day that Uvalde went down.
And Judy Chu, thank you for that introduction and for your leadership on so many levels. Tonight's a rough night. We planned for a great celebration, but I'm sure most of you have heard the tragic news about what has happened in Texas. So I had prepared comments about tonight, which I will speak, but I just first want to begin by saying a few words about the tragedy that occurred today in Uvalde, Texas. As many of you know, the reports are that it was a mass shooting at an elementary school, and the preliminary reports are that 14 children have been killed. And the details are still coming in, and of course the president and I are monitoring the situation closely. So while we don't know all the details yet, we do know that there are parents who have lost children. families that have lost children and their loved ones, of course, and many others who may have been injured. So I would normally say in a moment like this, we would all say naturally that our hearts break, but our hearts keep getting broken. You know, I think there's so many elected leaders in this room, you know what I'm talking about. Every time a tragedy like this happens, our hearts break. And our broken hearts are nothing compared to the broken hearts of those families. And yet it keeps happening. So I think we all know and have said many times with each other, enough is enough. Enough is enough. As a nation, we have to have the courage to take action and understand the nexus between what makes for reasonable and sensible public policy to ensure something like this never happens again. So the president will speak more about this later. But for now, I will just say to the people of Uvalde, please know that this is a room full of leaders who grieve with you.
Well, since we already lifted the explicit tag, we have recycled bullshit. Okay.
Of course we have recycled bullshit.
So I'll go back to what I said about an hour ago, which was I would sure love to be proven wrong. And they actually passed more legislation. You had a senator from my state, Chris, I can't even think of his last name because I'm too mad right now, almost getting on his knees begging people to go, please, let's do something. That's the equivalent of begging to Republicans and still thinking that you can get something done and that people are going to cross the aisle. You would think they would. Wasting time, Democrats I'm talking about, wasting time trying to appease the other side, trying to quote unquote work together with Republicans. Excuse me. No. The time to do something like this, like trying to save children's lives, happens now. Filibuster gone, get it done. Don't worry. She's up there preaching about we need to show courage. She's not talking about American courage. She's talking about political courage.
Well, absolutely.
That she refuses to do. And so does 50 freaking senators in that disaster we call Washington, D.C. Doing nothing. As the coach said, holding everyone hostage.
Well, absolutely. And you know what? I'm not going to put all the onus on the lawmakers. I'm just not going to do that. And you can call it giving them a pass. It's not even giving them a pass. You know who owns a lot of that responsibility? Take a guess. The voters.
Oh, okay, absolutely. But you see, my opinion is that we have people especially people that outside of a huge issue like this that that's all over the airwaves because the news media loves anything that has to do with blood. Okay, but most of the time, brother. Most American voters don't even know jack squat about the issues that are going on. They just vote blindly with party lines.
Well, how stupid is that?
I agree. I completely agree. All right. So on the one hand, I agree with you in that sense that some of that onus is definitely on voters. Okay, and you've heard me say this on this show many, many times that yes, they're at fault because why they keep putting the same recycled bullshit. I'll say it again into office.
Well,
so
see,
the
I had
political will extends, yes, to citizens as well. Okay.
Well,
but when
absolutely.
I see a lot of people really upset now on both sides, if you will, if they're, seated Republicans that are gun owners that say this is absolutely not right and want to be able to put in place additional legislation, I'll call it. The same people, because those same voters, Republican and Democrat, aren't paying these senators. Okay?
No, not anymore. Absolutely not.
So they're not afraid of them.
No, absolutely not. But see, that's that's where unlearning a system comes in. This, this isn't a quick fix, granted. It's not going to be a quick fix, but there has to be a freaking start somewhere. There has to be a start somewhere.
I agree, but
Well,
it's there.
I was going to say, I had this very same discussion with two people this week. Two people. And two Republicans, by the way. And they were talking about, well, mental illness and this and that, and it's not the gun, it's the mentally ill person that. And I
Yeah,
said,
that
wait a
that
minute.
crap
I
too.
said, you
Yep.
know what? I said, you know what? Some of those same people that voted for, these fools that keep, you know, opposing some sort of gun legislation. I said, some of those same people lost children in those school shootings.
Yep.
So what do you think their thought processes are now? Do you think they're applauding Senator so and so that they may have voted for to keep guns out of to keep, their children unsafe by letting these fools get these guns and walk into the schools and shoot up children? I said, what do you think those parents are thinking now?
Exactly.
So, it's got to start somewhere. There's got to be political will. There has to be courage. Somebody's got to stand up and say, you know what, gun manufacturer, your money's not worth the lives of those children. I'm not taking your money anymore. Somebody's got to do it. Somebody's
Well,
got to
on that
stand
on
up and
that
say
point,
it.
okay. Since we were talking about Sandy Hook earlier, this past January,
Chris
that court.
Murphy is your senator you're thinking of.
Thank you. Yeah, and because I was too angry, I should know better. But anyway, Chris Murphy is the one who was basically begging people to do something, whatever. Okay, and he obviously knows better, and knows full well what happened at Sandy Hook. Believe me, my point about money and gun manufacturers. Okay, they finally came down with the settlement against Remington, the gun company, and basically the attorneys that represent the Sandy Hook families, all right, went after their marketing. That's how they succeeded. Okay. So I applaud them because they're my heroes. They were able to, and it wasn't about the money going to the families. It was about justice around making the gun manufacturers admit their responsibility.
Good.
Now, I just wish the hell that would happen with politicians because they hold a larger responsibility.
Than
when
gun
they-
manufacturers, absolutely they do.
Mhm.
Absolutely, they hold a larger responsibility than gun manufacturers,
No,
without question.
no. They hold the politicians hold a larger responsibility than even the gun manufacturers.
That's what I just said.
Oh, did you? I'm sorry. Okay. See, I get so mad. I can't even. I don't even. That's not a matter of thinking straight. I don't even hear straight. So, but yeah, but he took these families to have to hire their own attorney or attorneys or a whole law firm, brother,
Yeah.
to go after a company because the frickin' politicians wouldn't.
No, they're not going to.
So we circle back to then they're fired, as far as I'm concerned.
They should be.
Which means yes, you would hope that Americans don't have a short memory span.
Oh, they do.
That's sad as hell.
Look at
Sad as
Parkland.
hell.
Look at what
Yeah.
happened in Parkland.
Well, as a matter of fact, brother, now that you just reminded me because I forgot to. I'm going to remove that source. Thank you for reminding me. Here is a presentation, a series of charts. Let's take a look at these together here. Okay. How many guns are there in the United States? You see that on the screen?
Yeah.
I don't quite understand this particular chart, but I was hoping maybe you could help me understand some of these figures. So they're saying top 10 civilian gun-owning countries. And look at that for the United States. Estimated number of firearms per 100 residents. So is that 120.5 guns per every 100 residents?
Let's see. A Swiss-based leading research project estimates that there were 390 million guns in circulation in 2018. I saw something about this. I saw an article about this, and supposedly they were accused of using incorrect numbers, but the numbers are real close to being correct.
Okay. This, by the way, this was published through the BBC, so it's not even here in the United States necessarily, but they do pull data from, American sources.
So while calculating the number of guns in private hands around the world is difficult, figures from the Small Arms Survey, which is a Swiss-based leading research project, estimate there are 390 million guns in circulation in 2018. Now, in the U.S., I would say that number is really freaking close, if not more. And that's the number of guns per person, per 100 residents. So if you take that 100 and divide it into 120, that's 1 point so many guns per person.
Okay, got it.
That number is probably higher, much higher. I can speak for myself and say, yeah, that number doesn't represent me fairly because.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that's
so the number is probably, I would say they need to add another 2 or change that 1 to a 2 or a 3.
Great.
No, I'm serious.
No, I know you're serious. No, I definitely know. Okay, here's another figure. Worst mass shootings in the United States since 1991, and so cascades. So you start with Columbine, which a lot of people forgot about that as well, and you go up from there, and very, very sad. These bars keep getting bigger and bigger, and of course there's Sandy Hook from 2012, right?
Yep.
Sad as crap. Good job, United States. Again, good job, Republicans and Democrats. Next one. States with assault weapons bans or restrictions. Look how many states don't do a damn thing.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Did Connecticut reissue that ban because it expired, I think, in 2015?
Now, all new tonight at 5:30, we're following breaking news out of the state capitol. Lawmakers have just passed Ethan's Law. That's a bill that requires all firearms to be stored safely in homes with children.
In just a few moments, Governor Lamont will be signing 2 critical pieces of legislation to ban untraceable ghost guns and to improve the storage of firearms.
I didn't need any reminder of why we're doing this and why I'm here today. But I was reminded, seeing Steve, that I had been in office for about a week. When I got that first call about, I think his name was Clinton, 12-year-old boy, Bridgeport. He had walked down corner store to get a candy and random shot dead on his way back on his front stoop. And I went down there to see the parents and see the family. It was like that. The tragedy of it, the suddenness of it, the inexplicability, the wrongness of it, and just the look on these families' faces. What happened? This could happen. So as Jeremy says, these laws save a few lives. They save a few more, like what I saw. What we can take this message around the country is so important, what this leadership means right here. I was walking in and I asked a woman, what brings you here? And Dr. Moore, she said, I'm here because I'm a psychologist who've been treating the families of those that lost children at Sandy Hook. And 8 years later, that still lives with them like yesterday. So what we're doing here is so important. It's not just a couple of laws we have an opportunity to sign. Our experience, and I also love the fact that it was such a bitter, partisan issue in this state until recently. And I'd like to think that we can show the rest of the country what we do working together here in Connecticut, make sure Connecticut stays a leader, and make sure the state stays a leader. And so to all of you that made this happen and keep making it happen and reminding us every day why this is so important, I promise you, and Susan promised you, we're going to do everything we can to make sure Connecticut stays a leader, and working with our friends down in Washington, D.C., make sure that what we do here in Connecticut, we take to the rest of the country. Now let's sign a bill.
But you look at this map, and just on some kind of restriction, 90% of the country has no restrictions on assault weapons.
Yep. None.
Another chart. How Americans feel about U.S. gun laws, right? And this kind of goes to your point, your point about a good portion of the blame lays at the feet of American voters.
All right.
So if you're going to sit here and say at 60, above 60%, people think that there needs to be more gun restriction, okay? You don't show it by voting these a-holes out.
Right.
If this is that important to you at over 60% of Americans.
Yeah, in 2018, 2019. Yep.
Yep. And who are these people at 11% that think that we actually should lower restrictions?
I'll give you three guesses, and the
Of
first
course.
three are probably correct.
Of course. MAGA, MAGA, MAGA. Right? Okay. All right, here's one more for you guys. Gun rights groups have spent more than gun control groups in most recent years. Chart shows in brown that they spend more money fighting gun restriction. And if you remember the map from of the whole country without any kind of assault weapon bans, well, I guess they're pretty damn successful.
Right. Quite successful.
When you look at this chart, which they started tracking from 2012 through 2020.
Now look at the source, the Center for Responsive Government.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You know who that is?
I'm so scared. Go ahead and tell me.
If I'm not mistaken, that's a right-wing group.
Of course. Surprise, surprise. So yeah, that just, pretty sad, but there's real data, right? Okay. And, since we're still talking about guns, you remember when President Biden came on stage and he said this?
Good evening, fellow Americans. I had hoped when I became president
I'll leave our mic
to do this
live.
again. Another massacre, Uvalde, Texas, an elementary school. Beautiful, innocent, second, third, fourth graders.
Hispanic.
And how many scores of little children who witness what happened, see their friends die as if they're on a battlefield, for God's sake. They'll live with it the rest of their lives. There's a lot we don't know yet. There's a lot we do know. The parents who will never see their child again, never have them jump in bed and cuddle with them.
Get to the point, Joe.
Parents who will never be the same. To lose a child is like having a piece of your soul ripped away.
Now, and I don't want to be insensitive. I know that President Biden lost a son. Don't get, let's not throw stones at Michael Kicking Bear because, I'm just as emotional as everybody else. I know, I get that. All right. But you're about to hear a monumental excuse come up.
There's a hollowness in your chest. You feel like you're being sucked into it and never going to be able to get out. Suffocating. And it's never quite the same. It's a feeling shared by the siblings and the grandparents and the family members and the community that's left behind. Scripture says, Jill and I have talked about this in different contexts, in other contexts.
Mm-hmm. So they're going down this other right. So before I give you the excuse, I'm going to justify it by bringing in Scripture.
The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. So many crushed spirits. So tonight, I ask the nation to pray for them. Give the parents and siblings the strength in the darkness they feel right now.
Thoughts and prayers, right? Thoughts and prayers once again.
As a nation, we have to ask, when in God's name are we going to stand up to the gun lobby? When in God's name we do what we all know in our gut needs to be done? It's been 3,448 days, 10 years since I stood up at a high school, Connecticut, a grade school in Connecticut, where another gunman massacred 26 people, including 20 first graders at Sandy Hook Elementary School.
All right. So he's going to give us real dates, right, brother? So I'll go back to my question. What have you done since then? Now he's talking about his time as a senator, guys. This is why I got on Kamala's case as a sitting senator. Both of these folks. You've done nothing. Don't tell me about hopes and prayers. Don't tell me about thoughts and prayers for people. Don't tell me that the country as a whole needs courage. Don't sit there and tell me that you did this X, Y, and Z things, that you held people's hands, that you hugged parents. That's not what we want.
You do know that they can't do it by themselves, yes?
Yes. But
Okay.
you know what? No. Actually, brother, no, I don't. They can do it without us. They have the power that were given to them by the people.
I'm talking about individuals. It takes a collective body to do something.
Yes, but they have the power right now. They won't vote down the filibuster.
Okay.
They have the power right now.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. But
not fix it, but to enact better legislation. They have the power right now, brother. They don't need to wait for November vote.
I am not disagreeing with that. I am not disagreeing with that. What I was saying about Kamala's speech earlier is she has the bully pulpit to push people. And if she can push people effectively, then use that freaking bully pulpit.
But that's my point, brother. She's had the bully pulpit since she was a senator years ago. Going back
you
to
don't have you don't have a bully pulpit as a senator. She can't do anything by herself. Biden can't do anything by. It's a reality.
So senators don't make speeches, brother. They don't go to events and they don't make speeches.
Sucky reality. It's a sad, sucky reality. But
they all have bully pulpits. Every single one of them. Every single one of them have the capability and do have their own independent ways. Okay, I'll give you an example. Okay, you know what AOC does?
What?
And she gets a lot of shit for this. Is she actually will go onto the gaming platforms.
She does her job.
She does her job, yes. But we're talking about bully pulpit. The bully pulpit is what you make it. She'll go into smaller gaming social media circles and talk to young people and talk about issues while playing video games. And she gets a lot of shit for that. That's
So
a bully pulpit.
that's not the bully pulpit.
It is
She
a bully
does.
pulpit. It's
It
what
is
you
not.
make it.
She
It's
does
how
her
you
job.
talk.
She does her job by talking to her constituencies,
A
and
bully
she gets
pulpit doesn't
crap
mean
for
just talking to millions of people at once, like Kamala Harris may have done, or the president when he does a speech like what I just paused from the middle of. You can have all kinds of forums that you can communicate those same things through, and all senators have the ability to do that. Every one of them.
They all
They have
have
the
that
ability to
ability to do
manage
that.
their own social media channels, which many of them do.
Yep, they sure
Okay,
do.
so
And
those.
that's them doing their job. If they're communicating like AOC, I'll just call her AOC. If she's
Yeah,
playing,
that's fine.
if she's gaming and she's able to reach 5 million young constituents who
Whoever,
are
yeah.
voters,
Even if it's
good.
100, even if it's 100 people, it
Even
doesn't
if it's
matter.
100,
Yep.
even if it's 100, we'll use your figure of 100. Even if it's 100, good.
Mm-hmm.
She's doing her job. That's what they all should be doing. But you know what? They don't. And it still takes a collective body to make any kind of change. It's a sad, sucky reality, but it still takes that collective lawmaking body to make a change.
I think we're
And
saying the same thing.
we as voters share some of the responsibility that
Yep,
happened
I
at
agree with that.
Sandy Hook, that
Yep, I
happened
do.
in Buffalo. Well, okay, so
I do. And all I'm saying is, in the case of the Sandy Hook parents, they took a gun manufacturer to a court of law when our senators and our elected officials did not.
they did not. You're absolutely correct.
Okay.
They did not.
So that's what I'm saying. Tired of thoughts and prayers, tired of speeches, the bully pulpit for, either the million people or 100. Okay. They've had their opportunities to do this for years and they haven't. Which means because one of the reasons that you're supposed to be in office as good communicators is being able to rally people together and get the support that you need. And so, as far as I'm concerned, if you're senators, there's one of two things that have taken place. Either you suck at your job, meaning you're a poor communicator and you didn't gather the support that you needed, so you're fired there, or you're on the take. Which means you also should be fired.
There's a lot of people that are in the lawmaking body that are on the take.
And then, yep, there certainly are. And so back to your point, which is accurate about, the voter has a piece of this and responsibility. You're absolutely right. Okay. And they fail too.
Yep.
So we've identified all the failures. Now we go, what do we do about it? Well, the first thing, somehow is, I think, is yes, we do have to, vote these people out, which means now if Kamala is talking about talking to Americans about having the courage to vote people out, then she should have said that. See, this is the problem with Democrats in particular. They suck at communication. So they right. So so we talk in circles and broadly so that people think they know what they're talking about, but they don't. That's part of the problem too.
Well, I know something has to be done, and it's got to be done sooner than later because you know what? We've had 30, count them, 30 school shootings in this nation this year.
Yes.
30. So, states that have these Republican governors and senators and House of Representative members, those people should be recalling those fools, and they should be done. As you termed it, fired.
Yep, I agree.
They should be recalling those senators and House of Representative members, and there's no excuse for this. There's no excuse.
They should have at least delayed because at the magnitude and like you just said, brother. I mean, 30 so far this year is extraordinarily bad. But the fact that we had 3, what the federal government defines as mass murder events within the span of under 15 days.
Yep.
Means you don't go home for vacation.
That's absolutely what it means. Absolutely. So we, as a nation, we have to do something. And I mean, voters, we have to pull our heads out of the gaming world. We have to pull our heads out of the reality TV world. We have to pull our heads out of our collective asses as a nation. And we have to do something. We've got to hold people accountable. And if nobody's willing to do that because it takes too much work or it imposes upon their
Mm-hmm.
whatever or some other sad excuse, then this stuff is going to continue.
Agreed.
You know what? Here's what I'm hoping happens. And before I say what I'm about to say, nobody mentioned the fact that these were predominantly Hispanic children that were murdered.
Oh, I did.
Indigenous children.
Yep, sir, that is correct. Because I didn't, I haven't, we're already long now, but part of I was going to raise that because I've got the press conference that the leadership of the police department held recently, where they were trying to address or trying to justify why it took them over an hour to show up.
Well, they
And
were
nobody in
there.
the news media wanted to touch that one either. You know what I mean?
They were there within minutes. They were there. It
but they
didn't
didn't
take
go
them an
in.
hour to show up, huh?
They didn't go in
No, they didn't go in.
for over an hour.
They did not go in for over an hour. And
So,
you know who took the shooter down? It was federal agents, border patrol agents. It wasn't even the police department.
yep,
So they all need to be gone. They all need to be held accountable.
yep,
They need to be held culpable in the murder of those children.
yep. But see, the news media didn't position it, that, oh, is the response because they were all, indigenous people?
Right.
Is that why it wasn't that important to, respond sooner? And to your point, brother, which, I didn't really look at it strong enough relevant to who actually did take the shooter down. So it took federal response to do your job.
Well, here's what makes it even more egregious. There's three things. They were handcuffing and macing parents who wanted to get into the school to try to save their own children. A grievance number one. Grievance number two. They refused to let the federal agents go in there. Refused to let them go in there. Grievance number three. They could have breached that room anytime they so chose to do so. They could have taken the shooter out through a window anytime they so chose to do so. They could have shot the mechanisms off of that door. There's armament to do that, and they had that armament. They were afraid of taking gunfire.
Yep.
That's what they are afraid of. They have body armor.
Yep.
I read an article where they got awarded brand new body armor last year or a couple of years ago. They waited on the janitor to bring a freaking key to unlock the door. Grievance number three.
Well, I'll add a fourth grievance that doesn't have to do with the lack of their action, but here's let me see. I thought I had his name written down. Maybe I didn't. But here's we'll call him the top cop. How about that? Out of Texas. This is the guy holding the press conference.
That it was considered, okay, the decision was made on the scene. I wasn't there, but at the same point in time, a decision was made that this was a barricaded subject situation. There was time to retrieve the keys and wait for a tactical team with the equipment to go ahead and breach the door and take on the subject at that point.
Okay, so first and foremost, okay, I need to make it clear. I wasn't there.
Right.
Right. Okay. Point number two, but Dr. Brayall already promoted that there was time to get the janitor keys. I mean, Here's more.
That was the decision. That was the thought process at that particular point in time.
That was the thought process. It was, I have this big ring of keys. Which one is the right one? That was our thought process.
Now, if you notice behind them, all the good old boys in their white hats.
Uh-huh.
And there was 19, like I said, there was 19 officers in there. In fact, there was plenty of officers to do whatever needed to be done.
I mean, all right, now, keep in mind, most of the parents that lost their kids were there in that crowd.
Right.
It wasn't just the news media.
Right.
And this schmuck, I'm going to say it. Now, I'm the son of a cop, and so I don't profess to know what it's like to be in a cop in a situation like that. But this is not the individual that I would put in front of grieving parents and say, we had enough officers.
Right.
Dumbass.
With one exception, is that the incident commander inside believed they needed more equipment and more officers to do a tactical breach at that point. That's why BORTAC was requested on the scene as soon as they were there. They executed a search, or at least a dynamic entry, and went in. And of course, that was not till 12. That was not till 12:57.
All right, now that cop that's moving behind him, that's the guy who addressed the media most of the time in the 3 days after what took place, and he's a problem too because he spent the majority of his time doing CYA, quite frankly.
Yep.
For the benefit of hindsight, stand by. Hey, stand by. Hey, stand by.
Members, don't tase or gas in any way.
For the benefit of hindsight, where I'm sitting now, of course it was not the right decision. It was the wrong decision. Period. There was no.
And here again, most of the people yelling at him are parents and media, but parents. This is not the guy they should have put in front of them. Terrible spokesperson. Right?
Yep. Absolutely.
Terrible communicator. He doesn't sound like he gives a shit whatsoever.
No, he doesn't.
And another clip that I have, I'll bring it up, and you can judge for yourselves, guys. Just this stuff just frustrates me to no end. It really, really does. This has to do with apologizing, and none of this is edited, brother. So this is one of their local anchors, I believe.
The parents of the children who died are watching right now, and they're hearing you say
Look at his stance.
that not everything that could possibly have been done as humanly fast as it could be done was done. Are they owed an apology from somebody, be it the incident commander and the police department here, not from you? Because
if I thought it would help out, apologize. But let me say this. Hey, let me.
I mean, no matter what you throw at this guy, he communicates. I don't give a shit.
Right.
If that's his justification for not apologizing. Apparently, he's like, look, if I thought it would help, okay, I'd give you 1,000 of them. But it wouldn't do any damn bit of good. So I'm just gonna, whatever.
Yep.
What the f?
Yep.
And that
just
was his attitude the entire day.
Yeah, he didn't care.
That's not the guy. Common sense says that's not the guy you put in front of whoever.
No.
He acted like he was just so bent out of shape because he had to answer people's questions, and particularly from the press. And this also is symptomatic of, you know what I mean? Well, y'all don't pay my bills.
Yep.
Or y'all don't pay me. I'll take my commands from the guy in the wheelchair over there. Okay. Greg Abbott. who did his own fair share of excuse making, right?
Yeah, I'm done with the whole mess that the police department tried to use as justification.
Yeah, so
I'm glad the
those were the
I'm glad the Justice Department is on this, and I hope Merrick Garland's boys sink their teeth into this deep and don't let go. His boys and girls, I hope they sink their teeth into this deep and don't let go.
well, that cop, and well, as you said, all the white hats back there, they're cover for this guy.
Yes, I was misled. I am livid about what happened. I was on this very stage 2 days ago, and I was telling the public information that had been told to me in a room just a few yards behind where we're located right now. I wrote down hand notes in detail about what everybody in that room told me in sequential order about what happened. And when I came out here on this stage and told the public what happened, it was a recitation of what people in that room told me, whether it be law enforcement officials or non-law enforcement officials, whatever the case may be. And as everybody has learned, the information that I was given turned out in part to be inaccurate. And I'm
Sorry, Spunky.
absolutely
The buck stops
livid
with you.
about that.
Exactly.
So okay, so
that was two, like something like 2 minutes of like, it's not my fault. I was only relaying what they told me.
Yeah.
Well, maybe if you had real gun regulation in your state. Remember, guys, this is the same a-hole that had a bunch of people freeze to death because their grid, which is privately administered, there's no regulation over their grid system either. Their electrical grid system. People died last winter under this guy's watch. Now we got these deaths. Now we got 19 children dead on his watch. But you don't hear anybody talking about that either, do you?
No, he was in a hurry to score political points. That's what he was in a hurry to do. Instead of saying, I don't have all the facts yet, this is still under investigation, I'll comment when I have it.
Yep.
He rushed out there to score political points.
Yep.
We're on top of this. Look what we did. Our guys charged in there and took command and shot that murderous killer.
And why? Because here's the other piece of that you have to remember. Remember, you just heard about this big NRA convention that went on there.
Yep.
Well, that's because the NRA was kicked the hell out of New York.
Yep. And Abbott welcomed them with open arms.
Yep. Exactly.
Yep.
So those are his. Those are his employers. Okay.
Pretty much.
And so, last thing he wanted was 19 kids dead, 21 when you include the adults.
Yep.
But now he's going to sit there, as you can see him there on the screen, trying to backpedal. I was only relaying what they told me. The guys outside with the white hats, Texas Rangers, right?
Yep, too much of in a hurry to score political points instead of just taking a more measured approach and saying we don't have all the facts yet. What did he came out there on stage? What moments? I'm calling it moments because it may have been hours after the fact, and tooted his horn and tooted the horn of the police department there. And none of it was true. The buck stops with you, Governor.
Now, one day earlier, Beto O'Rourke, his political opponent in this year's race,
jumped in his face.
Got in his face, and they all were trying to act all outraged, right?
Right.
I don't have that clip, sorry, but anyway.
Yeah, especially the guy that was standing up there calling Beto an SOB and a sick SOB. And
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Big old fat guy there that, has plenty of oil money, right? So, come on.
Yeah.
It's right in
So-
your face, guys. It's right in your face. So, it's more than political will at this point.
Right.
It's either you
about-
accept corruption or you're going to fight against it.
Yeah. It's about saying, I can't. Here's the thing. When you climb in bed with the devil, now he knows all your dirt. And if you don't keep playing and dancing to the devil's tune, he's going to put your dirt out in the street.
Yep.
And when that happens, you're all done.
Yep.
And these people have done that. They crawled in bed with the devil. The devil knows all their dirt now. So they will find it difficult to say, I'm not taking your money anymore. Okay.
Yep.
Your career's over. That's what it boils down to, folks.
It's true.
So with that, my bag is empty.
Mine is empty as well. And I'll ask for the audience's forgiveness for my uproar, loss of control, I guess you could say. I love my brother right here to death. You need to know
absolutely.
that. We're on the same page 98% of the time. But I do not have a lot of sympathy for politicians right now. Haven't for a while. Not that you do either, brother, but
Hey,
but
I call them as I see them.
Yeah. Yep. No, you do, and I love you to death for that. So. But anyway, go ahead.
No, I was going to say the feeling's mutual. Like you said, 98% of the time we're on the same page, and there's nothing wrong with having 2% flavor.
Yeah, absolutely. It's called nuance. Nuance. So, so if you want to comment yourselves on anything that we've talked about here on this particular show, perhaps we will, because this is a deep one, right? It's very emotional for most anyone I know, anyway.
Yep.
But please do so through our email system. It's hosts with an S, hosts@nativeopinion.com. You can leave us direct messages out at Twitter. It's at Native Opinion over there. You can leave us messages through Facebook. It's facebook.com/Native Opinion Podcast to get to that page. Or you can email us through the website at nativeopinion.com. You can also leave us a voicemail or a text message at 860-800-5595. That's the number for that. Any of those ways will work. And we would love to hear other people's perspectives, Am I way off base? Is Dave? Do you have a completely different take? We'd love to hear that too. So any of those channels will work. So, but with that, my name is Michael Kicking Bear. I am from the Mashantucket, or in our language again, Mashantunkwa tribal nation, located here in the reformed state of Connecticut, the state of Chris Murphy, who was begging whoever will listen to make change. My brother over here, he is
David Grayow, a citizen of the Achota Cherokee Tribe of Alabama. As always, we thank you ever so much for being with us, being a part of this show, growing with us. We couldn't do this without you guys and gals. Thank you.
Absolutely.